Here's what you should know about your local housing market in this week's Market Update. I thought I was going to be coming to you this morning saying we've got more houses coming on the market. We're seeing higher inventory as we see more homes coming on the market, and we're seeing some of the homes stick around for a little bit longer. However, the stats, when we look at it overall, are not showing that. They're showing a pretty steady inventory number. However, when we look at it a little more granular, town by town, we're going to see that some are up, some are down, and they're all kind of evening each other out. So let's get into the stats this week. We're looking at Morristown, Chatham, Madison, Harding, Morris Plains, Mendham, Chester, Bernardsville, Basking Ridge, and Randolph. So this past week, we saw 58 new homes come on the market. That's actually 3% less than we saw come on the market last week. However, town by town, most of the towns we're looking at, we did see anywhere from a 25% to a 300% increase in new homes coming on the market. That was canceled out by a select few towns that actually saw anywhere from a 25 to 50% decrease of new homes coming on the market. So overall, when we look town by town, a lot of these towns did see more homes come on the market this past week. However, some saw less, which kind of canceled it out. Out of these towns, we saw 50 of these were single-family houses, and only 8 of them were condos or townhouses. That might be another reason why it seems like more. Typically, we see a greater share of that being taken up by condos or townhouses. So this past week, we did see a much larger share of those as condos or townhouses. The average list price of homes that came on the market this past week was $1,386,000. Total inventory is currently, we see 301 homes on the market in these towns. However, a pretty even split in terms of, I'd say about half of these towns, inventory is decreased from last week. Not a whole lot, but slightly. And then in the other half of these towns, we saw inventory increase by similar amounts that we saw some of these other towns decrease. Homes sold. This past week, we saw 42 homes sell in these towns. The average list price of these homes was $1,385,000, and the average sale price was $1,468,000. Keep in mind, the data we're looking at here for solds is likely indicative of not so much where the market is now, but where the market was a month, 2 or 3 months ago. Most complete data, but least current data out of all the stats that we're looking at. So this past week, homes that sold for an average of 7.5% above the list price. We saw only one town where homes sold below the list price. Mendham, we saw 3 sales that averaged 2.7% below the list price. Otherwise, everything went substantially above list price. We saw Harding at 2% above list price, Chester 2.3% above list price, Randolph just 0.3% above list price. But then we're looking at Morristown 2.5% above list price. We're looking at Basking Ridge 4.6% above list price, and then shooting way up to Chatham at 15% above list price, Bernardsville 16% above list price, and Madison at a whopping 28% above list price. So we still are seeing plenty of wild bidding wars. On the front lines, it seems like even the ones that are going way over, less offers, but more competitive offers, and not everything is going wild. We're seeing still the good houses are still going wild. We're still seeing a lot of competition. However, historically in a normal market, certain factors that would normally hurt a home sale are coming into play again. So for example, if you're on a busy road, if you need a lot of updating, certain factors that normally would hurt you for the last few years have really kind of not played much of a factor. And now we're seeing if you have some of these big negatives in your home when you're putting it on the market, you're likely going to be sitting on the market for a little bit longer and negotiating. However, the good houses, the ones that are in a great location, that are in great condition, they're still seeing pretty substantial bidding wars. Under contract, this past week we saw 47 homes go under contract. The average list price of these homes was $1,449,000, and the average days on market was 24 days on market, which is actually an increase of 17% over the prior week. So slight increase in days on market, but then when we look town by town too, it pretty much evens each other out. Some towns are down, some towns are up. So pretty steady. It seems like we're seeing a late spring market. Normally we'd start to be looking at more of a slowdown for summer. If anything, it seems like the inventory, while it's not showing in the stats, it seems like on the front lines, the conversations we're having, it seems like that wave of new homes and deals, sales that typically happens a little bit earlier in the spring, seems to be coming into fruition a little later spring this year. So thanks so much for checking in with me. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll catch you again next week.